Why as a seller you do not want to work with an unrepresented buyer? Well, there is a lot of stuff that goes on in the back end behind the buyer's purchase that most sellers have no idea. Number one, you want to make sure that buyer is 100% pre-approved to go ahead and purchase at that price point. That means the lender has really checked into all of their financing, their debt to income ratio, their credit score, their employment history, etc., to make sure that they can purchase at that price point, that they have money in the bank for their closing costs, etc. Second of all, a lot of buyers are going to ask for an inspection, maybe a couple inspections. So who now is going to order those inspections, make sure the inspection gets done on time, reports come in, and the buyer replies to those inspections, and then we've got a whole negotiation period. What if they're asking for repairs or asking for a discount on the price? Who's going to negotiate and go back and forth and like do the change in terms addendum, all that kind of stuff? There's a lot of negotiations that can happen with the inspection, and there's a certain time frame that has to be done. The other thing that's going on in the background, the lender now, as we're in that process, is also double checking and verifying things from the buyer. There needs to be a mortgage commitment that is issued by a certain date and time. There could be things by the township that's required for the sale of a home. There could be HOA documents and transference that has to happen. Of course, utilities have to be transferred. There could be negotiations even towards the end with like furnishings, appliances, etc. So there's all these things happening, and then as we get closer, we have to make sure that we have the settlement statement from the title company, and who's communicating with the title company, who are they choosing, and that settlement statement that comes out, who's reading that to make sure that all of the numbers are correct and that is set up correctly for the settlement. And then of course we have the clear to close that comes through, the closing disclosure. There's just so many steps in buying a home that a seller doesn't know. So as a seller, I personally would not want to work with an unrepresented buyer because the buyer has no clue. And let's say you have an agent, a listing agent. What's going to happen when that buyer doesn't know what to do? They're going to contact your agent. Now your agent is put in the middle. They're representing you, but the buyer is actually asking them questions that should not be answered if they're not represented by that person, because it puts that person in a position of liability. So just as a seller and also as a listing agent, working with an unrepresented buyer is problematic and is not something that you should do or want to do. So just keep that in mind as you go forward, and maybe you're thinking about selling your house. Always ask that buyer if they have proper representation before you would sign an agreement.